Welcome, everyone. I'm Howard Rieger, convener of Southwestern Pennsylvania Grassroots Resident-Led Air Quality Town Halls. The title of this, our 13th town hall, We Are Making a Difference, is the answer to a question that I've been asked for the last 2.5 years since we launched this effort. Are we making a difference? And if so, how? We've assembled a constituency of over 1,200 individuals who are committed to positive change. And last year, 600 of those residents signed a letter addressed to Philadelphia-based EPA Region 3 Administrator Adam Ortiz, inviting him to tour the Mon Valley. He and members of his team accepted the invitation, asked us for advice on where to visit, and then came here to see firsthand hollowed out environmental justice communities located closest to two of our region's worst points of pollution: U.S. Steel's horribly maintained 123-year-old Clairton Coke Works and its 149-year-old Edgar Thompson Works located in Braddock and North Braddock. They heard directly from residents who shared the burden under which they are forced to live, a burden that makes this one of the very worst places to live in America for cancer, lung, and heart diseases related to the toxic air that we breathe. Ironically, our own health director, with offices just a few miles away, was unwilling to make that short trip to meet with residents, even though she was asked to do so almost from day one. We got additional good news early this year when the EPA announced that it was tightening by 25% the annual average standard for the deadly small particle pollution that plagues our region, from 12 micrograms per cubic meter down to 9. We know that our mobilization of residents led to Ortiz's visit. He told us that. We know that his voice was at the table when the national EPA made this decision. One other accomplishment was our writing a questionnaire to candidates for Allegheny County Executive, based upon resident input from over a dozen town halls. This enabled us to put candidates who responded on record when they answered our 10 questions about how they proposed to address inadequacies at the Allegheny County Health Department. One of those answers will set the stage for what will follow, because our guest tonight is Allegheny County Controller Corey O'Connor, who announced an audit of the Allegheny County Health Department's Clean Air Fund last November. Because of the ongoing audit, O'Connor will not be speaking, but he is here tonight to hear what we have to say. Thank you, Corey, for your willingness to do so. This town hall is our opportunity to play a meaningful role at a time of change in Allegheny County. With the Controller's audit of the Clean Air Fund, a brand new county executive, Sarah Innamorato, and the Environmental Protection Agency tightening air quality regulations, this is a unique time when resident input can make an even greater impact. So now we're going to begin the formal portion of the program. Sharon, take it away.
Thank you, Howard. The Clean Air Fund, instead of meeting the real needs of residents, especially those living closest to the point sources of pollution, was used to purchase in late 2023 11 electric street sweepers and 3 electric refuse haulers for 11 Mon Valley communities. Prior to that, over the years, grants of millions of dollars were made to fund the operations of the health department, install LED lighting in South Park and at CCAC. The Clean Air Fund, which currently has a total of about $10 million in it, is the repository of fines paid by county polluters. The Allegheny County Health Department takes 5% of the balance each year to fund its operations, in addition to other requests that it makes for grants from time to time. The opportunity to pay to pollute benefits our region's worst polluters. Keeping a large balance in the fund benefits the Allegheny County Health Department as it draws down its 5% annually. There seem to be clear conflicts of interest built into this structure. Here's what our new county administrator, Sarah Innamorato, had to say about the Clean Air Fund. Quote, I am strongly opposed to the diversion of Clean Air Fund money to cover more of the costs of the Allegheny County Health Department operations. That money is to remediate harm caused by polluters, not to renovate buildings or to pay staff, but to repair harm in communities that need it most. I will work with our team at the health department and community leaders to design a process that creates a clear and equitable way for community-based organizations and public health nonprofits to apply directly to the fund in a public process. I will not allow closed-door decision-making about how the fund is allocated. I will aim to get this money back out into the community as quickly as possible. Close quote. Now we're going to hear from Matt Mihalik. He's the executive director of the Breathe Project, an umbrella group for nearly 60 environmental advocacy organizations. Matt will speak about the portion of the Allegheny County Code that established the Clean Air Fund. Matt?
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Howard. Thanks, everyone, for being here. My purpose tonight is to just provide an overview about the parameters of the Clean Air Fund and how it's supposed to be used. Because the reason is, over the years, there's been a lot of miscommunication, sometimes from the health department itself, about what those funds can be used for. And there's also been a lot of difficulty from community members for getting access to those funds. So it's helpful to start with the facts. So I'm just going to quickly go over this section of county code that establishes the fund. Here's a link that I'm putting in the chat that takes you to the county health department webpage that you can look to see an overview of the Clean Air Fund. And there's a link there to Article 21. Article 21 is the county's air pollution code, and within it is where the Clean Air Fund provisions are exist. So what I've called up here is one of the sections of the Article 21, Section 2109.09, which establishes the County Clean Air Fund. And the highlights there are my own to call our attention to specific things. So it's very important to understand the purpose of the Clean Air Fund. So the purpose is to receive and disperse all penalties, fines, and interest received by the county under this article as a result of applications, permits, licenses, consent orders, non-compliance penalties, civil penalty actions, consent decrees, civil penalties, or summary proceedings other than fees-related interest and other related funds. And so this next part is important. The Clean Air Fund is specifically for the disbursement of such funds solely to support activities related to the improvement of air quality within Allegheny County and to support activities which will increase or improve knowledge concerning air pollution, its causes, its effects, and control thereof. So that is the purpose, and that is very important. Now, we're not going to go over this line by line. If people want to, they can certainly go back. but this section C covers the disbursements, okay? And so the disbursements shall be utilized solely to support the purposes set forth under subsection A above. That's this highlighted portion here. So this support activities to increase or improve knowledge concerning air pollution or related to the improvement of air quality in Allegheny County. That's fairly broadly conceived and construed. And so if you look at how they've delineated some examples of such disbursements, item A is the support of research and development of control technologies. B, health effect studies concerning air pollution, special purpose monitoring as defined by the EPA, public education concerning air pollution, the acquisition of consulting or other services from persons with special experience and or expertise, the purchase of equipment, materials, or services to supplement the county's air pollution control program, or item G, which I've highlighted here, any other project that's consistent with the purpose of this section and the mission of the Board of Health. So that is a very broad provision. As long as someone is applying with the purpose of improving air quality in the county or educating people about air pollution, this is something that is permissible, okay? Now, you heard Sharon talk about the 5%. This section 2 is why that is there. There's part of the code that says no greater than 5% of the balance at the end of December 31st may be used to fund the normal operating costs of the county air program. So that's where that money is coming from. And it's also why, in some ways, it becomes an interest to keep a high balance, because 5% of a high balance is a big number. Now, okay, let's go to these procedures, because a lot of times the problems that people have had with this is not knowing how to apply for the money, how to get access to it, who reviews it, who says yes or no. There's been a lot of confusion about this over the years. So section D talks about the procedure for disbursement of funds. So the first step, and so this is pretty simple when you read this language, so it shouldn't be complicated. 1, the department shall prepare requests for disbursements. So that means it's the Allegheny County Health Department staff, the director, the deputy director, and the team that are staff of the county working on the air quality program in the Department of Health. The department shall prepare requests for disbursements. Okay, this is very broadly conceived, and so it gives a lot of leeway for who's managing the ACHD to prepare requests for disbursements. Now, what we will want to see with a new team is that this is made a lot easier for people and residents in polluted communities that may want to access that money. These requests should be done in a way that makes it rather easy for people to apply. That has not been the case in the past. Number 2, the department shall consult with the Air Pollution Control Advisory Committee regarding the disbursement request. So this word consult means that it's shared with the committee. And by the way, if people are interested in serving on the Air Pollution Control Advisory Committee, I really suggest that you go to the Inamorado website that requests names of people to be nominated to serve on boards and committees. It would be great to have many people that sit on and attend these town halls to consider serving on this committee, because right now, this committee's too dominated by industrial interests. We need more community voices on the Air Pollution Control Advisory Committee. But the word here is consult, so that means get feedback, but this doesn't mean that the advisory committee has any veto over anything for suggesting projects from this fund. Number 3, the department shall present requests for disbursements to the Board of Health. The request shall include a summary of the consultation with the Air Pollution Control Advisory Committee. Number 4, the Board of Health shall approve or disapprove requests for disbursements made by the department. So it is really, at the end of the day, the Board of Health that says yes or no to these projects. So that also means we need people sitting on the Board of Health that would be open to supporting requests from the community. So people should consider nominating themselves or qualified people to sit on this board. And here's the last thing that I highlighted. The approval of the Air Pollution Control Advisory Committee is not required. So it's really, it rests solely with the Board of Health and is the department staff that are tasked with setting up the process of getting ideas from the community, preparing them, sharing them with the advisory committee, and then taking it to the board for votes. So that's what I wanted to share with everyone today, because just to make it clearer about how all of this works, because that's what's important for how people can move forward and get money from these funds. And with that, I will pass this forward to our next presenter.
And that next presenter is me.
Howard, sorry, it's Corey. Do you mind if I don't know where I'm jumping in. I heard at the beginning.
Go on.
No, I heard at the beginning that you said I couldn't speak. So what we meant, and maybe there was a miscommunication. I couldn't speak about the audit that's ongoing. But just so I can tell everybody the background as to why we're doing the audit, if I could just have a couple minutes and then I'll.
You can have all the time you need.
Well,
I'm thrilled to hear that.
I'm getting close to bedtime with 2 little kids, so I don't have that much. But
Okay.
I do want to just sort of piggyback off what Matthew was just saying. That is the gist of our audit. When we first started, we put out guidelines for what the county needs to follow in the future. There were a number of them that we posted. It was about green infrastructure, sustainability, things that the county hadn't done. One that stood out was our own fleet in the county has 700 vehicles, and we had like 5 at the time that were electric. So, that really spurred what we should be doing in the county. And our guidelines were only the start. And, talking to the new county executive, she's very encouraged to do more of those things as well, which I think is great for everyone. So when we saw that, we put the Clean Air Fund down as an audit. I mean, it just, for so many years, we're hearing how communities try to apply for money. They're not getting it. They're not understanding sort of the details of the guideline. And the county has to do a better job of going through that process. So our audit is ongoing, which is why I can't get into the details of it. Hopefully it's wrapped up in the next couple months. But we have, the audit goes from January of 2021 till September of 2023. So that's where we're at. I mean, the fund, as was mentioned, gets roughly $10 million a year that we're seeing. That money needs to go out. It should not be sitting in a fund. It needs to go help these communities that, have air quality issues like, well, we all do in this region, but immediate assistance. And I know that you went through a number of who has received the funds over the years. But I think us doing this audit will hopefully give us greater guidelines in the future, especially when it goes to helping people learn about this fund itself. A lot of people don't know that. And that's why I'm so happy to just give you that briefing right there. And myself and my staff are going to stay on. I just wanted to make sure that that's why we did the audit. It's something that we have to do. And, hopefully we can do more and more of these. And by listening in on this call tonight, we'll hopefully learn more about what you want us to investigate, where our county funds are going. So just wanted to say that and let you get back, but I will stay on. Just wanted to let that be clear. And the audit, we believe, will be done in the next 2 months. It will be publicly posted on our website, but we'll send it to this group immediately.
Corey, thank you more. And on behalf of, the over 60 people that are on this call, thank you for being here and for your commitment to do that audit. It means a lot. And now you're going to have the opportunity to hear from 4 residents of the area who are going to speak to some of the issues that we've been talking about. because the final portion of this town hall will consist of presentations by these four people, the themes of which underscore the urgency of the new Director of Health hearing directly from the community, rather than freezing them out as the current Allegheny County Health Department has done. Community members have asked for funding from the Allegheny County Health Department's Clean Air Fund and were given the runaround instead. Ideas such as home filters, timely emergency notifications, and community education proposals never were allowed to move forward. The community has ideas about what it would like to do with the Clean Air Fund money, but the Allegheny County Health Department has resisted those efforts because its Air Advisory Committee is dominated by polluting industry voices, making it unlikely that these proposals ever get to the Board of Health for consideration. Gaslighting residents by telling everyone that the community never comes forth with good ideas for the Clean Air Fund, or that these ideas do not meet the specifications of Article 21, is frankly duplicitous, which is why a closer look at the Air Advisory Committee and Article 21 are warranted by the new administration, along with addressing conflicts of interest that undermine the effectiveness of the Allegheny County Health Department and its Board of Health. So now we're going to hear from our first resident, Kiam Ansari. Kiam, take it away.
Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I am going to be talking through a timeline of my process trying to get access to the funds. My name is Kiam Ansari. I am the current president of Valley Clean Air Now. We are a small grassroots organization that got our start in 2019. And I'm just going to walk you through our journey of, trying to advocate for our community. So in 2019, we first got started. We were a combination of two different community groups in the Mon Valley. We decided on a name and VCAN. But in 2019, as a lot of us know, the Clairton Coke Works fire happened, which brought, an immediate sense of urgency to our organization to bring resources to the community. After that happened, we looked at where could we possibly get money, and we found the Clean Air Fund. We submitted a request online using their online form, which is available on their website, and we are still waiting to hear back from the department. We are naturally disappointed because the Clean Air Fund's is primarily financed through penalties that are collected from air pollution violations. And the fund is supposed to be dedicated to supporting activities and projects that improve air quality by reducing, eliminating, and preventing air pollution within the county. We felt like, providing air filters to directly clean the pollution in people's homes, at least allowing them to shelter in peace in their homes, would meet those requirements. We don't know if they did or did not. We didn't get a response. During that same year, we understood that the Clean Air Fund typically draws down around $500,000 to $600,000 every year, but in 2019, the program received only $2.1 million from the Clean Air Fund for operating expenses, which represented about 44% of the Clean Air Fund total expenditures. This raised a lot of eyebrows about where the funds were going, at least from our perspective. And we started to look elsewhere for where we could get money. During that same time, in June of 2019, the U.S. Steel Community Benefit Trust was created, which was from a settlement that was brokered between the Allegheny County Health Department over air pollution violations. U.S. Steel put 90% of that $2.7 million penalty into this Community Benefit Trust Fund, and the other 10% went to the Clean Air Fund. Because we hadn't heard back from the Clean Air Fund, we decided to look elsewhere to our partners to try to see what we could do about providing resources. Thankfully, because of a donation from the Heinz Endowments, they gave us $50,000 to seed our project. We partnered with Women for a Healthy Environment, Raucous, Clean Water Action, and Clean Air Fund, and we were able to distribute around 75. We'll put air filters in about 75 homes in Clairton. We did this for a full year, collected a bunch of data, and statistically proved that having these air filters in people's homes reduced the amount of asthma flare-ups, allowed people to sleep better, and actually, provided a tangible benefit for residents. And so, we took that data, very happy, and looked to raise more funding. So that brings us to 2022. In 2022, the need for our program was apparent. We quickly ran out of funds and had a waiting list of over 400 residents, but we didn't have any money. So we emailed the trustees of the Community Benefit Trust, which are, comprised of 5 boroughs, so Clairton, Lincoln, Liberty, Glassport. And, we were asked, how could we access your funds? And they said, you need to go to the Clean Air Fund, because the Clean Air Fund is where you guys are supposed to get money to address clean air problems. It's not from our money. And so that kind of leads us to 2022. We spent the entire year trying to raise more funds. We couldn't get any money from the Clean Air Fund, couldn't get any money from Community Benefit Trust. So we wrote a bunch of grants. Thankfully, we were able to raise $250,000 from the Heinz endowments again, and from the CMU.
Sorry about that. I was muting someone, Kiam, and I accidentally muted you. Let me get right on it. Apologies.
Hey, can you hear me again?
Yep, we can hear you. I apologize for that, everybody. Sorry about that. Please keep
It's
your
okay.
mics
I
off.
thought I did it. It's okay.
Nope, accident on my part.
So in 2022, after we raised that funding, we applied again to the Clean Air Fund on the website. We're still waiting to hear back from them. At that time, they released an RFP. They were looking for programs to support community education. At that time, we were in the process of creating a community education program, community health survey, and an air filter program. So we applied again on the website. We didn't hear anything. We never got a response. During that time, we attended the Clean Air committee meetings, and we noticed that U.S. Steel actually submitted a proposal that was heard by the committee to take $500,000 of the Clean Air Fund and to make improvements to the railway to allow them to bring in more materials into the plant. And we were a little perplexed as to how they were able to get the proposal seen, and we weren't able to get the proposal seen, and how they were asking for money, find money that was from them to use to improve their business processes. So that really made us upset. We never heard back from them, but we figured there must be some inside pathway that other folks are utilizing to get access to this money. That brings us into 2023, when things really started to heat up, and folks started to raise a fuss about what was going on. VCAN at that time was able to get hold of those funds, and we began to administer the second part of our phase of our program. This time, not focusing in Clairton, but expanding out to the 5 boroughs. At the beginning of 2023, we applied for the Clean Air Fund again on the ACHD website. We're still waiting a response. In March of that year, the Air Pollution Control Advisory Committee saw a proposal which was going to increase the amount that the air quality program could expense for operating expenses, which was 5%, which would go up to 25%. And the proposal aimed to address the department's fiscal challenges, and it was set to have a projected $760,000 $760,000 deficit for that year. This was news to all of us who had been applying to money all these years, that they had this huge deficit coming up. We didn't know, we were never notified. And later that same month, we advocated against it. We rallied the community. I think everyone commented and told them not to do it. the Allegheny County Board of Health voted to advance it. And later in September, the Allegheny County Board of Health awarded more than $2.3 million to fund clean air projects. And these projects aided the Allegheny County municipality in electrifying fleet vehicles, and also planted 150 trees in the county. Later that year, in November, Mr. O'Connor and his office announced to initiate an audit of the Clean Air Fund. He spoke earlier about what that's aimed to do, so I'm not going to repeat that. And then later that same month, the Allegheny County Board of Health awarded $24,000 to two different projects. The first was a 3-year sponsorship grant for Pittsburgh Regional Science, and the other was a 3-year sponsorship for Pittsburgh Regional Future City Competition. I think those, projects were great. We were curious about what the process was for receiving those projects. What other projects did they receive? What was the criteria for picking those? Again, we never got a response. So, Mr. O'Connor, if you are checking into, that process, I'm wondering if there's some way to look at that form that they have, or to look into who's responsible for, making those decisions. Because,
yeah, I don't know if I can jump in, but yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's sort of part of this, and we'll find out the details of it. But yeah, that's part of it as well. So thank you. I won't interrupt. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely, and I appreciate that. But that essentially concludes our long saga of trying to get money from the Clean Air Fund. We did apply again, in good spirits in 2024. We are still waiting to hear back from them. But so far we've been able to distribute over 436 air filters, and we're going to continue to raise funding to continue delivering our programs. I appreciate the time, and thank you, Mr. O'Connor, for being here to hear from us and for responding to me and listening to kind of what we've been going through. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kiam. And now it's time for us to hear from Eddie Shaw. Eddie, take it away.
Okay. First, I want to thank Howard for all his excellent work over the last couple of years to bring us to where we are. It's really impressive. And Kiam, I just want to tell you that I can't believe you stuck with it, because you've been and you've done great work, but it's a big problem. Anyway, I'll keep mine short, 3 or 4 minutes. In 1979, my wife and I moved to a house in Squirrel Hill, typical Pittsburgh house, over 100 years old, and it needed a new roof and a new ceiling in the kitchen because it was sagging and collapsing. So we hired a person to take down the ceiling in the kitchen and to replace it. And in the middle of the day, I came in to see how he was doing. And this is the truth. The only thing on his face that I could see were the whites of his eyes, because his face was completely covered in black, fine coal dust. And I said, oh my God, where did that come from? And I realized it was from burning coal over the last 100 years. But I sighed a sigh of relief, and I said, well, we don't burn coal anymore. We're getting natural gas. And I thought that the air that I was breathing at home and outside would be, significantly cleaner than what I saw come out of the ceiling. But I actually think I was mistaken, because this afternoon I wet a tissue. I don't know how is this very visible? Could you people shake your hands? It is, okay. I can just shine a light on it more if that helps. I don't know that it does. But this is from one windowsill on my second floor. Okay, thanks, Gwen. And it is the finest of fine particulate matter. I think it's coal dust, which is still, of course, with us because we still are using coal, in the coke works or in Clairton, whatever. But this is the stuff that we're breathing. And it's rather disheartening as well as disgusting. So that's the first evidence I have that, as we all know, the problem is not solved. The second thing I want to show you is this filter for my furnace. Could you shine a light on it, Lynn? This,
Now you can see it.
this part over here was as white 3 or 4 months ago as it is over here. It's all gray now. I used to change it twice a year. Now I'm up to 3 times. And I remember last summer when we had the Canadian wildfires, it got real dark very quickly. I'm going to buy another one this week. They cost about $35. It's not cheap, especially if you think that you need 3 or 4 of them a year. That could be about $150, $170. Why can't the Clean Air Fund be used to purchase and distribute filters that are somewhat sophisticated like that, as compared to the very thin orange ones that I'm sure many of you have seen? I remember when it was discovered that we had lead in our water from the lead pipes, which have been totally replaced, by the way, at no cost to the homeowner. I remember that the fire department distributed pitchers with clean, what were they, Brita filters in the middle of it, which could be replaced at when they got used up or dirty. And they were free to us. Someone paid for them. It certainly wasn't the consumer. Well, I don't understand why, the filters like this or other, as Kia mentioned, house filters shouldn't be part of what the $10 million in the Clean Air Fund is used for. And the last thing I want to say is, I think that Allegheny County has not seen a whole lot of growth in terms of jobs. And we have a vibrant high-tech sector here, but I just wonder at times if people who are looking for a job in high-tech and have the wherewithal to use the technology, if they're not keying into the air situation in Pittsburgh. And that may be a deterrent for them to come here, because the air quality here, as Howard has pointed out on numerous occasions, is quite bad. So that's all I have to say. And I appreciate, everything that's being done to try to address the problem. I think the best thing would be for US Steel to shut down and not burn any more coal. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eddie. And now it's time for us to hear from Ebony Flowers. Ebony?
Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear and see me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Howard, and all the presenters. I am learning a lot. Like Howard said, my name is Ebony Flowers. I am an environmental justice advocate. I work for New Voices for Reproductive Justice. We operate in 3 cities and 2 states, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Cleveland, Ohio. Environmental justice is one of our main issues, so we incorporate climate advocacy and awareness in our organizing and public education. So my purpose here today is to talk about how the toxic air is impacting our most vulnerable populations. In Pittsburgh, people breathe air that is suffused with toxic matter. And this is according to the American Lung Association. It has gotten so bad. In fact, back in 2019, as Howard pointed out as well, Pittsburgh was determined to be the worst place for people, and especially for Black women and birthing people to live. Breathing in polluted air makes it more likely for pregnant people in Pittsburgh to give birth prematurely. Premature births and low birth weight make it more likely that a baby will die in the first year. And this is also linked to both immediate health problems, lifelong chronic conditions, and etc. Unfortunately, Pittsburgh's ongoing air pollution story is not the only problem for healthy pregnancies. in healthy mothers and healthy babies. Air pollution is also linked to harmful maternal health conditions like preeclampsia and gestational diabetes. The burden of air pollution is not evenly shared, and the data doesn't lie. Low-income people in Black communities are among those who often face higher exposure to pollutants and who may experience greater responses to such pollution. The most recent EPA review of this research on the health effects of particle pollution concluded that non-white populations, especially Black people, face higher risks from particle pollution. Many studies have looked at differences in the impact of air pollution on premature death. Recent studies have also looked at the mortality rate in the Medicaid population and found that those who live in predominantly Black communities suffered a greater risk of premature death from particle pollution than those who live in predominantly white communities. And this is not just an environmental justice issue. It is a human right to access clean air and clean water. Environmental degradation adversely affects our ability to create and maintain safe and healthy families. We are constantly overstretched and constantly under attack, and this directly affects our reproductive health and reproductive freedoms. Black, brown, and low-income neighborhoods continue to see an increase and disproportionate illness and premature death due to a lot of environmental factors. Environmental justice is also a reproductive justice issue. We cannot care for our families and communities in healthy environments when land and green space are being stripped, the air is toxic, and potable water is contaminated. I conclude my time, and I want to thank you all for listening, and I guess give it to the next presenter, excuse me.
Thank you, Ebony. And last of all, but certainly not least, I've had communication with him. Nico Gonzalez Rickner is going to speak. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Nico, and the project you're involved in.
Hello, I'm Nico Gonzalez Rickner, and I'm a high school student at Winchester Thurston School. I live in Swisshelm Park, less than 3 miles away from the Edgar Thomson Works of U.S. Steel, which often pollutes the air around my home. I'm a member of Civic Stage, a branch of NextGen Pittsburgh. Civic Stage is a nonprofit focusing on addressing the many problems we are facing right now, from mental health to air quality. Our goals at Civic Stage are to empower youth with a network of pop-up youth-led civic education, to inform the community and address issues in Pittsburgh and all across the globe. In less than a year of operation, we have 13 members. We have gone over 150 signatures to have AHN and UPMC address air quality issues in Pittsburgh, and we have polled hundreds of people across Pittsburgh as well. We have discovered some shocking and worrying data related to air quality in Pittsburgh. 60% of the people we polled underestimated the number of bad air quality days in Pittsburgh. 52% of them don't know the risk of cancer from air pollution in Pittsburgh, and 57% don't know about the severe asthma risk in Pittsburgh. Money from the Clean Air Fund could be used to inform the community about the dangers of air pollution and support organizations such as Civic Stage. Pittsburgh has many problems, and Civic Stage is working on addressing them with the power of youth. Thank you.
Thank you. And now it's the opportunity for everybody to weigh in. If you have ideas about usage of the Clean Air Fund or any other issues that you want to raise and which hopefully we can answer, it's your time. So Mark Dixon's going to begin to triage that part of the meeting.
Yeah, thanks, Howard. We're just going to take questions in the chat, or if people want to raise their hand and ask a question, that'd be great. So mostly, though, we'd prefer the chat, I think. So if you've got questions, throw them in the chat, and we will point them at the appropriate speaker. We've got thank you to all the speakers. Excellent data, Nico. Thanks for your involvement in educating people on this very serious risk. Thank you to all the presenters. So many potential questions, but we'd love to hear them from you. Sometimes it takes a moment to just kind of think of your question.
Yeah. I mean, I have a question that I'd ask in the meantime. Nico, just a word about where you got that data from, how you got the signatures on petitions, how you managed to interact, you and your fellow students managed to interact with a significant number, I guess it was over 200 residents.
So we go to different places around Pittsburgh. We go to farmers markets. We go to Squirrel Hill, and we just approach the community and pull them and ask them to sign our petitions.
And what's the reaction when you do that? Do most people respond? Do some people just sort of argue with you? Do people agree with you?
We've had some people just like put their hand up and walk away. Some people are very supportive. I haven't had this experience with somebody I worked with. Had somebody say, like, walk away and say, I'm Republican, and just be completely against it. But it's some of everything. There's some people who are very interested and some that aren't.
Yeah, I would just say a word. My personal experience has been since I got involved in this project and joined the Breathe Project, and maybe a year and a half later, came up with the idea that we have this grassroots effort of town halls. I have lots of people that I speak to that just aren't aware of a problem. They've lived here all their life. Maybe they got olfactory fatigue. They can't smell anything. But the standard reaction I've gotten frequently is, well, that was, it was really bad when it was smoky and you couldn't see, and, you had to turn on the street lights during the day, but the air looks cleaner today. Well, it does look cleaner, but the problem is the small particle pollution that really assaults us, gets into your bloodstream, and is worse. It's more toxic than what used to exist. So, not that this didn't also exist at that time. Yeah, Thaddeus.
Yes, may I talk?
We have a couple other questions from the chat, but you're already talking, Thaddeus. So just ask your question, and then we'll get to those in the chat as well. Sorry,
Okay.
folks. Thanks.
The question is to the VCAN gentleman. I can feel your frustration and pain. We were once there with ACAN. Okay. Had you ever thought about going directly to a health department meeting or board of health meeting and make your case there in person, or was that too challenging for you?
We have definitely made our case at a couple of health department meetings, and they say, thank you for your comments. And that's about that.
Okay.
So,
okay.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I appreciate your frustration. We experienced it, but it was a different health department then. They actually talked to us and had meetings with us. So maybe that will happen again. You have our support. Okay. Thank you.
I see one of the questions in the comment was, is there a new health department head? No, there is, as we understand it, a search process ongoing. And I think it is worth noting that, and I kind of alluded to this in the few words that I said earlier, that when the last director of health joined the department, and I think she was there about 2.5 years, if I'm not incorrect. There was communication with her from some of the folks who are associated with the Breathe Project about what some of the top priorities should be. One of the top priorities was go out and meet with residents. None of those things happened, and it's unfortunate. So it's a new beginning and a new administration, and hopefully we'll end up in a better place.
We've got lots of questions and comments coming in now. Thanks, everybody. One quick comment. John Engel mentions, I agree it would be helpful in the meantime to make air filters available until our air quality can be remediated. Kathleen Skutnicki asked a question that she posed very early on, but she reframed it as, how can we prevent local politicians from using funds for other purposes? And I think it's worth, perhaps we can address this in both directions, the community trust and also the Clean Air Fund as two separate questions there. Do we have any takers on that?
Well, you know,
Sorry.
no, go on.
So is the question how you can stop them from using it for other things? That was actually a couple months back. There was actually talk of the board changing that 5% to even a higher percentage. Luckily, that did not occur at the time. But those are the things like we really have to look after because, you know, in theory, if you get enough votes on one of those local boards in so many ways to change it from 5% to something different, and this was when we announced our audit, this was a big issue. You can do it to plug the holes in the budget. I think that was mentioned before, and that's not the purpose of these funds. And so I think having groups like yours, having, you know, new health department, new people on these boards to make sure that stuff doesn't happen, that will go a very long way. But that's the kind of stuff that if we're not watching can happen. And it's scary because the money shouldn't go to plug in our budget at the county because somebody made a bad deal 5 years ago. And I think that's something that why this fund is important, that it goes to the right places. So sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but I thought maybe I could help with that one.
No, you're the definitive person to respond to some of these things. So we really appreciate it. You know, a part of the frustration that I sense and others have expressed is if you take something Kiam mentioned, the Community Benefit Trust. So we take one of the most significant polluters in our region, U.S. Steel, and we turn them into what would appear to be philanthropists. You know, they're actually doing something that's good for the community. They are not. They're paying fines, and they should not be in a position to be able to direct funds like that. Fortunately, I think the Community Benefit Trust has a sunset time. Maybe it's in 2025. And hopefully, as Corey O'Connor just said, better deals can be arranged in the future. Matt, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just thought I could provide a little bit of history as to why a community benefit trust was established in the first place. And this is in no way to justify it. I'm just trying to explain what happened in the past. Around 2018, Dr. Hacker, who ran the health department at the time, tried to make more of the clean air funds available. And the only way that they allowed that to happen is to go through the county's procurement software system for applying for money. And that was a complete and utter nightmare because nobody could figure out how to navigate that system. Like, that was meant for vendors who regularly do business with the county, not small community groups that want to buy air filters or educate their community about air pollution. And so it was clear at the time that the county, the health department under Karen Hacker didn't have the capacity to essentially act like a philanthropy organization, where you send out requests for projects, you provide descriptions, you collect the information, there are people that review them in a transparent way, and then you lend, you give out the money from the fund. So when there was a settlement between essentially a lawsuit that Penn Future filed that initiated it, that eventually drove the county to settle for the $2.7 million for something like 6,700 breaches of the air pollution control law. The county thought it would be better to set up a community trust with an organization that has the skill sets to collect proposals and, review them and get money out to people, that it actually would be a better process to do that. Unfortunately, when the county put that out for public comment, which was in July of 2019, they didn't listen to a lot of what community members said that they needed. Like, for example, requiring provisions that those funds only be used to mitigate air pollution problems or public health problems, and that the board include public health professionals to help with the guidance of reviewing projects and proposals. Instead, they put it out there where, you know, the impacted communities in the Mon Valley could just select a representative to sit on that board. And that meant the town councils of, I think, the 7 communities that, you know, now govern the disbursement of funds. And that meant the politics of, you know, those local communities, which tend to be dominated by U.S. Steel's interest, start treating that fund as if it's U.S. Steel providing money for charitable projects in those communities. So that's how the history of that, what initially was supposed to be improving performance, has actually made it more confusing and in many ways more disingenuous for what the money should be used for to begin with. Meanwhile, the Clean Air Fund, you know, the money wasn't going to the Clean Air Fund then. The county lost the ability to control what happens with those funds. But their process wasn't any better. So the solution is having capacity and competence within the county health department staff to review these proposals, make it an easy way for community members to request funds for projects, and a very straightforward back and forth process so the money can get to people. That's what really needs to happen to end the skewed practices that exist both in the Community Benefit Trust and the Clean Air Fund.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Howard, we have a couple other questions I'd love to squeeze in if we could before we close out. Let me just focus this. Okay, so we've got one from Angelo, Toronto. Do you know who at the health department reviews applications? Do we have anyone who can speak to that? Or was that addressed in Matt's comments broadly?
I think it was.
Okay, great. Yeah, sorry, I have like half a brain on the thing and half a brain on the other thing. So that's great. And Angelo, if you were also half a brain on something else, this will be recorded. It's on Facebook right now and will be available for you to review. Okay, is there a new health department head? How would you address that? Can better monitors be required to capture the pollution which is not visible? This is done in Beaver County with the Shell plant. That's an interesting question. There are a variety of different monitors.
You're the expert on monitors.
So many monitor options. I think that there are some really interesting monitoring projects happening all throughout the region. I think that the health department has more of different kinds of air monitors in the Allegheny County area than have existed previously up in Beaver. And so there's a different starting point for those. I think also that there are some groups who are working on some EPA funding projects that will help enhance the opportunities for additional monitoring in the Allegheny County area. I do know also that, you know, some of the monitors that are up around Shell were ones that I deployed with the help of some other groups, including BC Mac, and those are mostly purple airs, and there are many purple airs already all throughout Allegheny County. That's kind of where I started to put out a lot of purple airs initially and learn from those lessons to go up and put a bunch up around in Beaver with the help of community members in both locations. And those continue to roll out. And so if anybody is interested in putting out their own purple air, feel free, but sometimes there may also be groups if you're interested. I'm always happy to take any interest from anybody about any monitor anywhere and try to find a partner for you who may have access to monitors or monitor ideas. So that's just a couple of options there, Gail, and that's a large question. One other type of monitoring that the health department did, I think that was rooted in a lot of the complaints from the community, was the H2S study where they deployed some specialized hydrogen sulfide monitors all around Clairton Coke Works, and determined with enough certainty for them to declare that basically the exceedances of H2S in the region were caused by U.S. Steel, and then they fined them accordingly. And so that was also some additional specialized monitoring that happened in Allegheny County. And I suspect that the Smell Pittsburgh reports, among other complaints in the tens of thousands, contributed to them attempting to do that. I think there's more that can be done because obviously we've had a lot of stench continuously even since then. And obviously the fines that are present are not stopping the stench from wafting all throughout Pittsburgh and the greater Allegheny County region. So that's an ongoing problem. So those are some quick reflections on that. Happy to go into more detail offline, Gail. More questions, more comments. Jackie Wade mentions Clairton is the center of all the pollution, but I feel our city should have city meetings to show our citizens the statistics. We need to be a part of the discussion on how monies are used. Public input. We are the ones suffering. How much we can stand. How much can we stand? Thank you, VCAN, for the purifiers only personal community assistance. JC Caston wants to know if we want to sing "You're My Sunshine" at the end of the presentation. If people want to vote that up, maybe we can think about it, but I think that might be something to do on your own or to post a video about it and then share it with the group at some point. Even though I love singing, may not be the forum for a lot of singing today. I love singing so much. Okay, and Matt had a response to Angelo, and then let's see, Bellevue agrees with Thaddeus's assessment. Patrick Dowd has closed off communications as much as he possibly can. Let's see. Jermaine notes that VCAN has attempted to get access to the Community Benefit Trust as well. Some thank you to Corey. Multiple people weighed in on that one, emphasizing it. Jackie Wade mentions all communities need good evacuation plans in case things do go bad. Community officials need to protect the citizens. I don't think big business should sit on those boards. Their profits are burial plots from newborn to the elderly. And that was boosted by 6 different people. As new residents to Pittsburgh, we are, Nancy Carason mentions, as new residents to Pittsburgh, we are so grateful to each and every one of you for providing this insight. We understood that there was an air pollution problem in Pittsburgh. However, we had no idea to this extreme. I
actually communicated with her to ask her where she moved from. They moved from Seattle. So, you know, this is not Seattle from the standpoint of pollution for sure.
Yep.
But look, hopefully we're all making a difference. And I think that, you know, my sense is this call with Corey O'Connor on for most of that whole time and members of his staff, a serious audit and a new administration should lead to changes. And that's what we're all hoping for. And this won't be the last of this issue or all the other issues we deal with. Anything else?
Howard, there are many other questions and comments in the chat, but there's one that I think really caught my attention that I would really love to bring to the group here to see if there's any input that we have from anybody on the, here who can offer input. It's from Abhishek, who mentions, is there any plan to increase the fines to U.S. Steel since they seem okay with paying to pollute? I think that's a really important question for us to grapple with. Any takers?
Matt, do you have anything to say about the level of fines?
Can you repeat it one more time, please?
Sure, Matt. Abhishek asks, is there any plan to increase the fines to U.S. Steel since they seem okay with paying to pollute?
Yeah, thanks. I did put a quick response further on down, but what it is there are some provisions in the county's Article 21 that include escalating fines for serial polluters. So they do tack on additional fines because there is a record of past compliance. And even in some of the settlement agreements that have happened with U.S. Steel include, U.S. Steel waiving the right to dispute those penalties as well, too. So those provisions are already operating. Unfortunately, even those additional penalties aren't sufficient to act as a deterrent. That when you tack on, the additional fees, U.S. Steel can just continue to pay them. It just means they're not big enough. They don't bite hard enough. And, what we've seen that actually acts as a better remedy is the intervention where either a federal judge, which was in the case of the Edgar Thompson works, or in the case of the most recent Clairton Cookworks settlement, where there are agreements for them to change the way they operate. In that most recent settlement agreement, they agreed to shut down Battery 15 at the Clairton Cookworks, and they agreed to $37 million in required, improvements at the plant. So it's still too early to assess whether or not those things are actually helping. So, we'll be paying attention to that. What we also have seen, however, is in the case of Tonawanda Coke in New York, they were willing to prosecute criminally. They were willing to take the management of that company, in a criminal proceeding, which resulted in jail time because they broke the law. We in Pennsylvania don't seem to have an appetite for, criminal prosecution. It's more directed towards the civil penalty portion. We see this happening with Shell out in Beaver County, and we see it in the Mon Valley. So hopefully I know that's not a satisfying answer, but that's kind of what the situation looks like right now.
Thank you, Matt, very much. I also wanted to highlight that I put a note in the chat that Nancy mentioned, or Howard responded, where did Nancy come from? I think it speaks to an issue that a lot of people are unclear about, that there are for new people to Pittsburgh, or for people who've been in Pittsburgh a long time, the air quality community in the region has been working feverishly to try to bring about as many potential supports and knowledge tips to help protect you from air pollution in the region. We've learned a lot about how to navigate this. So it's not perfect and it's not always free, but we're trying to make things available at lower cost than they might be just on the regular market. And also there are lots of things you can do for free, like paying attention to low-cost, local low-cost monitors to see when is the best time to maybe step outside, go for a jog, take a walk, have the children playing. There are all different kinds of air filters that have different capabilities. There's also a program, ROCUS has a reducing outdoor contaminants in indoor spaces. They have a low-cost monitoring project that you can join and get a bunch of monitors loaned to you and some mitigations, air filters. The program is entirely for free, but it takes extra time. It takes a significant amount of personal time to do. But there are many, many different programs. And so I encourage you to reach out to us. I put my contact information in the chat. Reach out to anybody you can before you just decide, oh, this is just my new life and that's all I can do is just suffer. We can suffer less by sharing knowledge and resources. And so please reach out to us. We've really tried hard for years and years, some for decades, to try to find ways to protect ourselves here. So
Jackie,
don't give up.
Reed has her hand up.
Yeah, Jackie, please go ahead. You just unmute yourself, Jackie, and then you can ask your question. Do you need help unmuting? I can.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, honey. Yes, I was in a meeting with a gentleman who said that the Pennsylvania Constitution provides that we as citizens are provided with clean air. So when we talk about a criminal charge against some of the polluters, are we correct in assuming that they are then breaking some of the Constitution of the state of Pennsylvania by polluting areas and then only being fined for that pollution?
I'm posting a link in the chat to that section of the Constitution that I just quickly Googled online. It shows the clause about that. I think that's a very complex legal issue. Yeah, Matt has some comments. Yeah, Matt has some.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I'm not an attorney,
Mhm.
But what my inclination is to say that by not providing for honoring your right to clean air, that it's a constitutional rights violation.
Mhm.
That would require, a prosecution to prove that people's rights are violated and that some sort of appropriate remedy would be established for the violation of those rights. And there's not a lot of precedent for that. I've talked with attorneys about this, and they seem to be wanting to wait for the right case to prosecute that, so that when it's proven that the penalty would be severe enough and it's such an obvious penalty that it actually would put some bite into the enforcement of those rights. The same attorneys say that if a weak case is chosen, that it can result in there not being a lot of bite to enforce those rights. Now, whether that's right or wrong, I don't know the answer to that, but that's just what I've
Mhm.
heard from lawyers that have been concerned about this. What I will say is that rights are best preserved when citizens demand that those rights be honored. So talking about them and letting our representatives know we care about them and that they should be speaking out to help defend them, is a strategy that gives value to those rights. And many of us that do this work do speak out, and use the rights that we have in communications when it comes to, polluters.
Right.
What can happen is, if we know, like US Steel violates these rights periodically, that it should be eroding their social license to operate. That this is a company that regularly puts its interest above the rights of our residents of the state.
Right.
And that means they should be in a weaker position, which is why I think they're deciding to sell the company, to be perfectly honest.
Right. And then with that company that will then purchase the US Steel works, we will be fighting the same thing, sir? Is it known that they're not coming with a miracle, that they're going to come in? So the same things that are going on now, are we going to continue to sit in just the same situation with just a new owner? I just,
Yeah.
I give all thoughts. I go to a lot of political things. So county exec has been talking about getting involved, and so has the county controller. He has spoke about the auditing and all that kind of thing. But it's like the community trust fund. I hear you say that it was set up for the fact that it was to benefit those 5 communities. But anytime you would go to the community trust meeting, the citizens cannot say anything. And I feel that if it's the money that is being provided to the citizens, then the citizens should have some part of saying something. And then even with clean air, when you're talking about they're looking at that 5% and everything, well, I wouldn't spend any money either. I would try to get the biggest bang for my buck too out of what's going on. So I don't know. I think it's a lot of politics, and then again, the citizen is just out there. Half the community is sick, and children have asthma. There's statistics so high from these hospitals and clinics about these children with asthma, and they're being sick with a sinus infections and ongoing skin disorder. I saw in that chart that we were reviewing a mental illness. It's just like it's continually growing, and now we're just following a pattern of meeting, fine, but nothing is, coming about it for the citizen. Does that sound right?
But I think that is what, the experience of people is. But I will say that there actually is progress that's happening.
Yes, I think there is. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
And that progress is, to the credit of people that have been in these town halls, about a third of the Clairton Coke Works has been shut down in the last 2 years.
2 years, right? That's correct.
Batteries 1, 2, and 3, and now 15, which
15.
my understanding is about a third of the capacity. Now, is that we have yet to know whether or not that leads to long-term improvement or not. We don't know yet. We had stinky days last week.
Surely.
Would suggest that it's not fixed well enough.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still plenty more to do. And also just add that we have, like, Thaddeus is here from Allegheny County Cleaner Now, and Angelo and Barb. They fought for 5 years, 6 years, but they eventually got the Shenango Coke Works to close.
Right.
So it's, the Clairton Coke Works is 10 times that size. So we've got a bigger fight that's a longer fight.
Right. And I do think that some of the citizens here within our city, I am from Clairton, and I think that they have not only lived good lives off of U.S. Steel, but because we are a small community, a large minority group in our community, and they were provided with good jobs and they were provided with good benefits for their family. You really look at, and you have to weigh the factor of what are they doing to the air as opposed what are they doing to the way that I'm now living. So you fall short on both sides. So when we speak of Clairton and shutting the mill down or not having the mill up and running at the capacity, I guess, that it could run, we are looking at all the ways that they have increased better air in our city and everything, but we still look back in the past to those people that allowed some of it to go on only because it was their only way of life. So we don't want to take blame that we didn't want to do anything. It was for the fact that it actually was life for very many people here. So I don't speak against them only for the fact of not making a good living for people, but the air quality has to be our first concern.
Well, I think maybe the logical place to conclude is, take a look at what you just said, Jackie. U.S. Steel is a very modest share of what it was at its peak. Invested $6.5 billion in Arkansas and has plants in Alabama. Its Arkansas plants are non-union facilities. What was 125,000 steel workers in this region is down to a handful for a few thousand. So yes, we should worry about those individuals and how they're going to earn a living, how they could be retrained perhaps. But U.S. Steel, or whatever is going to succeed U.S. Steel, is not making investments here in the Mon Valley.
That's right. You're right.
And the second piece is that, and I just want to leave us with a little bit of hope for the future. We have Corey O'Connor and his team on, and there is an audit of the Clean Air Fund ongoing. We have a new Allegheny County executive, Sarah Namarato, who says and has shared with us in writing on our questionnaire that she wants to do something about these issues. And we have an EPA that finally took action after a good number of years in the previous presidential administration. They wouldn't allow them to take action, lowering the level of small particle pollution, PM 2.5, by 25%, which will assure that this region is going to be out of compliance for the foreseeable future. So we have a convergence of opportunities and forces here. And I think this is the time to just keep the pressure on. This won't be our last town hall. We'll have another one. We will continue to pound away at this. And I think together we can make a difference.
All right. I agree with you. I agree. What you said is perfectly correct. And I do give praise to, as I said before, the the county controller and also our county executive for stepping up and really approaching the situation and I think trying to do the best that possibly can be done with the audit and then county executive saying she was going to stick with us. So we have to praise those two. When we look out there in the world of politics, we have two great people on our side. And the EPA, yes, sir, and the EPA.
And the other thing I would mention is, in communicating back and forth with Nancy and finding out she moved here from Seattle, this is potentially a really great city, but it's not a growing city, and our region is not growing. And we need a formula for the future. We need the kind of jobs and industry that can really build. We're tied to the past here, 150-year-old past. It served its purpose for a lot of years. It doesn't anymore. And we just, we need a better path forward. That's what we would hope for from the right elected officials.
Okay.
So I want to thank everybody for being a part of this. Stay tuned. We'll have another one in the next couple of months, and we'll try to make a difference going forward.
Can I speak?
Sure. Who's that?
Sure. Well, I'm JC Caston, and I have a bunch of disagreements. I wanted to end this with a song about "You Are My Sunshine," but I have I disagree with you. I don't think that we are in the right direction. Shapiro gives me whiplash. Every time you read about this and that, and the bills that are being passed by DeLuzio, by Thompson, backed up in the Senate by Fetterman and Casey, they are doing the exactly opposite of what we are trying to do. This has, I guess it is specifically about oil wells, capping oil wells. And I think that is absolutely the wrong way to go. That's the number one thing.
Well, listen, that is not our mission.
What is your mission?
Well, we could have a disagreement. All I can say is, from my point of view, we're talking about Allegheny County. Allegheny County and its health department is the entity that's lodged with the important work of enforcement of air pollution standards. Listen, there's lots of issues beyond that at the state level, at the national level, which are of concern. But that's not what we're trying to affect. We're trying to make a difference in the enforcement pattern here. Are there things happening elsewhere that are counterproductive that would go in a direction that we wouldn't choose to go? Yes, I wouldn't argue with that.
But okay, so my question would be like, I heard you and I've been listening to you, but I don't understand your direction. When it is when it is abundantly obvious that we are kind of on the same path, but not quite so. I'm not quite sure where we're going here with these conversations. They are diametrically opposed to what is happening with laws that are trying to be passed. We have people trying to take away those things that would actually go and take methane readers on oil wells and try to go, then there's a law that we don't need to do that because it costs too much money. Well, but then you look at how many people have said the EPA has gone to their acreage and plugged wells that were not leaking, but they used the money from the taxpayers to do exactly that. So with all due respect, I'm not quite sure what exactly we are that we're doing.
Well,
because I'm not done, because there is one thing that happens with people who are absolutely advocates of trying to take care of our children and our grandchildren for the future. But it seems like we're not actually doing that. We keep speaking to the choir, and there's no action behind the words. What are we doing? Everybody agrees with everybody else here, but we're not doing anything. What have you changed?
Well,
What
you know
do we change?
I am going to disagree with you. You know, you've had your chance to say what you want to say. You have a right to your opinion. You don't have to attend a town hall. We got 1,200 people who have been part of this venture. We had 65 people on for consistently tonight. If it doesn't meet your need, I'm sorry. You know, and if you have every right not to be a part of this. You've expressed yourself. I hear you.
It's not my need, Howard. It's the need of the future.
Okay,
And you can continue to do these things and have 65 people. But when I look at who's on there, it's everybody else who has been here for the last umpteen forever. And nothing really has changed.
Okay.
Okay,
don't think
good night. God bless you. All right, then. I guess we're not singing You Are My Sunshine.
No, I'm not singing Mirror
Why
Sunshine
not?
because I'm not a vocalist. You know, I'm doing the best I
You want,
can.
well, I'm
You know
not
what?
either.
I just want to say the following, and I really do think it's time to close this off. But the reality is, everybody has a right to their opinion, and you have a
And
right.
nobody wants to sing.
Well, you know, okay, so we don't, and you'll find another place to do that, I guess, if that's going to satisfy you. But the reality is, I do believe we're making a difference. I believe we have made a difference. I think the Breathe Project has made a difference over the years. You know, is it as fast as any of us would like? Are there other things going on elsewhere? Of course, there are other things going on elsewhere. And I'm not going to argue with you about plugging wells or, you know, Josh Shapiro, or what the governor's doing, or what's going to happen with green steel, or all the kinds of things that, you know, with carbon sequestration. There's a million things out there that aren't going to be consistent with what we wish would happen. But
So what's your point then?
the point is, politics is the art of the possible. We're focused on the art of the possible. And, you know, I just think that you have a right to your opinion. And, you know, I respect your opinion. It just doesn't happen to be where we're headed. And we're trying to do the best we can.
When you say where we are headed, what does that mean? When we are headed, what does that mean?
Well, if you want to stay on here, I'll give you my email address, and I'm glad to communicate with you directly. But, you know, right now we've got 40 people left that are, you know, trying to.
I mean, the number of people who are still on here, the conversation is apparently between you and I. What does it mean when you say we are? We are.
You know what? I think we should end this. I'm going to ask Mark to just please bring this to a close. I really wish you
Clearly
had.
so.
Well, what are we going
Clearly
to do? Spend the rest of the night talking? Mark,
Yes.
it's time to end the.
All right. I'm so sorry. I've decided to mute her. I think that there's it's an important conversation. It's very frustrating to live in Pittsburgh and have to deal with all the air pollution that we have for so long. And these are very long-term problems. U.S. Steel has been a hegemon for over 100 years in this region, and that can sometimes make it very difficult to make change. But I think it's also important to close this event out for today, but leave ourselves open for longer conversation. And it sounds like, Howard, you've been willing to do that. I'm willing to do that too. I think there are probably many in the community who are willing to do that as well. Thanks, Howard, for wrapping it up. Go ahead. Any final words, Howard? I'm so sorry to mute you, JC, but we can have the conversation later.
No, I think it was an excellent meeting, and listen, everybody doesn't have to agree, but the fact of life is, I think we are making a difference, and together we can continue to do so. So thanks, everybody. Have a great night, and more to follow.